Let's move over to the quarterbacks for Waiver Wired, and here's the notable ones on a bye for Week 14. Absolutely brutal list. Lamar Jackson, QB1. Jaden Daniels, the top 5 quarterback. Bo Nix, a top 10 quarterback. Drake May, Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, obviously guys that are more viable in 2 quarterback leagues, but still matter a lot here. This is a very, very tough list. If you are looking for someone, we start with Russell Wilson. He's got the Browns, who kept Bo Nix from a fantasy perspective in check last night, but Russ has been chucking it and has looked really, really good for the Steelers offense right now, Matthew. He's 65% available.
Yeah, he is. You think about that first matchup against the Browns, he averaged almost 10 yards per attempt. Browns allowing a league-high 13 yards per completion this season. Honestly, the Browns defense didn't. I know Bo Nix threw the 2 picks and they limited him somewhat. Yeah. It wasn't a massive fantasy day for Bo Nix, and we'll get into that game in a second. But also, Bo Nix missed some throws, and
they're vulnerable. On the back end.
Huh?
They're a vulnerable.
They are very vulnerable in the back end.
Yeah.
You saw Denzel Ward leave that game late with an injury. We don't know the status there. Browns will be traveling on a short week. This game is at Pittsburgh, at home at Pittsburgh. So yeah, I do think Russell Wilson going against a Browns defense that's 27th against the pass over the last 4 weeks is a viable streamer this week. He's available in 65% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, the Browns, the thing with their defense is that if Myles Garrett doesn't get home,
right.
And last night Myles Garrett's beating his man in half a second, and still Bo Nix is completing 13-yard passes there because Martin Emerson Jr. can't hold up in coverage. It's really just Garrett and Ward at the moment, and outside of those 2 guys, it's a very exploitable defense.
In the same game, Jameis Winston makes the list for us. 85% available. You want to talk about a guy that absolutely throws it. This is who he is. You mentioned it too. The Steelers aren't great at corner. This could be another game for Jameis in a throw script.
Yeah, what are you
I was just going to say that I've already started a petition that I'm sending to Commissioner Goodell that Jameis Winston has to start every primetime game. I don't care. He's all-time quarterback.
He
should
just
be
watch TV.
Yeah,
pre-game, during the game, post-game.
I'm praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And what's even crazier is, by the way, I totally believe him. Yeah. I believe that Jameis Winston got down on his hands and knees and say, oh dear heaven, farther art there in heaven, please deliver me from pick sixes. I believe he did that as well. I'm not particularly religious, as you can tell, but I'm just saying, I think he got down there and and said whatever prayer he needed to say. I truly believe he did that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But look, for our purposes on Earth, Jameis is just going to continue to chug it. As we mentioned before, they cannot run the ball. It's hard to watch Nick Chubb at the moment, despite him scoring some feel-good touchdowns. He just can't get anything going on the ground, so they have to throw. The defense isn't very good overall, so they're just going to be in these throw scripts. And Jameis, for all his sins, if his pick 6 sins, he can put up massive, massive yards. And he did it against the Broncos defense that's been awesome all year, and he threw for basically 500 yards. So I think this is just going to continue to be the show. This is Flacco 2.0 from last year was the fantasy.
1,000%. Since taking over as the starter in Week 8, he's the 5th best quarterback in fantasy on a points-per-game basis. It's not always pretty, right? But it's better from a fantasy perspective than it is from a real-life perspective. But, he's the second coming of Fitzmagic.
He's the volume king at quarterback.
He is the volume king as well. And you're perfectly right. Again, Stefanski's offense is built for this. It's just Watson was so unbelievably brutal that they never got there. But Flacco was a league winner last year. Winston absolutely can be down the stretch this year as well.
Yep.
Will Levis, our final quarterback here. He's 88% available. He's got the great matchup against Jacksonville, Matthew. That's what matters most. And he threw 2 touchdowns last week. The rushing attempts were down, but
he's looked better. Similar to Bryce Young, he has looked better.
A little more in control.
A little more in control, making some nice throws as well. No team allows more fantasy points to quarterbacks than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so since he returned as the starter, Will Levis, he's averaging almost 17 fantasy points per game. He's got multiple touchdown passes in 3 of the 4 games. He gets you a little bit of production with his legs as well. So again, in a week with 6 teams on a bye, 6 legitimate starting quarterbacks in fantasy on a bye, I think Will Levis is certainly an option this week. He's out there 88% of leagues.
2 deep league ads. They're streamers at quarterback. Aiden O'Connell, because he's got the Bucs. The Bucs secondary has just been brutal this year. That's great news for the Raiders.
And
offense.
O'Connell put up nice fantasy numbers against the Chiefs on Friday. He really did.
Could have won that game.
They should have won
obviously.
that game.
Cooper Rush against the Bengals. another same story. The Bengals defense can't stop anyone. Cooper Rush getting a little bit more comfortable filling in this Dallas offense.
Yeah, both these guys, as we mentioned, with super favorable matchups. O'Connell in particular, the level that he showed against the Chiefs, and just his ability to just feed Brock Bowers in a way that Gardner Minshew hasn't to the same extent. Yeah, super favorable for Aiden O'Connell. Very viable streamer.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.